Welcome back, everybody. This is part 3, Hot or Not, SCUM Edition. So what we're doing here is we're ranking all of the SCUM ships with current meta viability, S tier being the top and F being the bottom. And then we're going to rank them a second time based on my opinion for how the ships look. Let's do this. So let's go ahead and just start with some that we know are complete and utter garbage, the worst. So you start by taking the M3A and just slap it in the F tier. It's just bad. There's very little utility to it. People who are trying to make it work because they're trying to do something different, not because they're winning tournaments. It's the truth. And obvious, just like, that's really good. Like right now for SCUM, there isn't an S tier. In my opinion, I don't think there is something S tier. There's a couple of A tier things. We talk about A tier, the Fang Fighter. Very solid chassis, Fenral, very good. Old Tirok, very good. The Lancer class pursuit craft is in the B tier, I believe. So Ketsu Onyo is a really, really good pilot. I think she has the best ability clearly out of all of them, but the rest are just a little bit too expensive to get too many things with them. Because of that, we're dropping it down to B rather than it being an A. The Fire Spray, second edition, it was absolutely tier S. It is not that anymore. It has fallen from grace. It's not tier A. You know what, we'll do it, we'll do it a solid. I'm gonna say in between, it's with B. It's with that Lancer. It's in that, like, it's okay. Early, during the point switch, people were trying to do Boba Fett with Slave 1 and Navigator, which is a really interesting combo, but just not as good as it was. It's not as efficient. I was about to call this ship Guri. That's essentially what it is, right? The Star Viper is a chassis where it's extremely fragile. Its limited blue maneuvers is what really holds it back. One of our buddies, Jeremy, from Gold Squadron, basically he loves his Star Vipers and he says you just never really want to stress a Star Viper, and the problem is that it just gets really predictable, and when ships are predictable in this game, they die. Guri is by far the best pilot they have. With that funky barrel roll reposition, with a deep bid, if you're able to move last with Guri, you're able to get her into some awesome flanking spots in order to not get shot, use her ability to get the focus and do all that. Just recently, there's been a couple of players experimenting with 4 Star Viper lists in hyperspace. Kind of very similar to the Quad Phantom idea. Of course, not as many mods, but that idea of basically staying in a corner, using that funky barrel roll just to kind of just hang out. You're basically just swishing back and forth until your opponent delivers a ship to you. You try to eat that one up and to continue from there. The Star Viper right now, I think overall is going to be in the B tier. And this is, we're going to see this, I think, really consistent with SCUM. Is there are a lot of things that are like, that's good. I probably can't win a tournament with it, but it's good. The G1A right now is at C. Forlam is the best that they have. The first points that we had a lot of people trying Forlam with advanced sensors. The problem is that advanced sensors went up in price, making that ship more expensive and basically priced out of competitiveness when you're talking about tournaments. The Z95 right now has very little. I guess it's a little bit better than the Seek. We're going to put it in the E tier. E tier. The customized YT1300, Lando's Millennium Falcon, I think is A tier. It has a lot of utility, especially with Han and Lando. I know that it's only 2 dice. A lot of people say, oh, it's only 2 dice. But where the upgrades are priced at, we got Trick Shot, you have the Lando Millennium Falcon title. You actually can get some pretty powerful combos in there. Our co-host, Marcel Manzano, is a huge fan of this chassis. I mean, he'd be upset if I didn't put it, if I put it lower, but I think it's at the A tier along with those Fang Fighters right now. The Y-Wing right now is, you know, you think of Drea and you think of the lowest initiative with veteran turret gunner and some type of double tap. That, of course, makes it competitive. I'm going to go ahead and put them at the B tier, and of course, using Drea with the generics, being able to get those re-rolls. If you're not familiar with her ability, we can go ahead and slap it up here. And I mean, it's just a good, solid ability. You throw a turret on her, and you just make sure to keep her arcs in the fight. The Hawk 290 at the inception of second edition, again, it was a ship that in first edition was trash. It was complete and utter garbage. We started second edition, way undercosted, especially the title. The title was just so good for the cost, and it's still a good card, but the cost went way up, making it so that, again, it's still good, it's just not tournament viable. And a lot of people in tournaments, you're min-maxing. You're looking for what is the least amount of points I can pay for the absolute best thing. And you try to get as many of those things in a list as possible, and that's going to get you some tournament wins. I'm going to go ahead and place it in the C tier because all of the Scum Hawks, they need that second arc in order to be really, really good. And you need that third attack dice in order to hit something. With the cost of where the Hawks are, 2 attack dice isn't cutting it. The Aggressor, the ship of IG-88, A, B, C, and D, right now I think is in the D tier. It's too expensive. And this is something you're gonna hear a lot for Scum. It's too costly for what it does. And you can only get 2 of them in the list. And they don't put out enough damage. They're not high enough initiative to be, you know, arc dodges or anything like that. They're just kind of in a weird place, and they don't put out enough damage for what they cost, and their synergies can get kind of useless over time. Maybe sometimes I've seen a couple of people make a single IG-88 work with the IG-88D crew, but again, nobody's really gone extremely far with that. A couple people playing, you know, swinging above their weight class, I think. The Scourge right now is in a good spot when you talk about the generics. They are cheap enough with Veteran Turret Gunner and Drea in order to hit hard, and they have a lot of hit points. We see some niche uses of Captain Nim, who, again, nobody wants Captain Nim to be good again. I mean, if you have the trauma from first edition. I'm gonna have to partner that up with Drea in that B tier B slot, because right now it's okay. It's not great. A lot of people like to use them in extended because they're just thick ships. They do work. And I think it's really dependent on the player to take the ship to the next level. Like really good players flying Dreadlocks, where it's, you know, 3 of these Scourges with Drea, can do really, really well. But the list on its own, I actually don't think it's great because you got a lot of people playing it incorrectly. And then, of course, Sol Sixa drags the score down a little bit because it's not really used. And along with Nim, really competitively, there's people using Nim because they like bombs. But B tier, the cheapest one, the Lock Revenant by itself, is probably A tier. But because it's with the other ones, we're going to go ahead and slap it in the B tier. The Mining Guild tie, I think, is a really cool tool. Specifically, of course, Captain Sivor, whose ability just allows you to essentially get that free jam, because people most of the time aren't shooting at him because he's not a huge threat attack-wise, but he can be a really annoying fly, and one that when you destroy him, he's not worth all that many points. We're going to go ahead and put him in the B tier as well. He's a good building block, but the rest of the chassis really brings it down. The other pilots aren't really used. Their ability to go through rocks, their ship ability, and ignore them is great because it opens up parts of the map where you can actually fly. The problem, of course, is the fact that they still can't shoot while on rocks. And with the increased use of gas clouds, their utility is going down. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and drop it to C tier. The Quad Jumper is a ship that, you know, when we started, it was really underpriced and everybody was using it. If you were flying Scum, you had 2 of these in your list. But we have seen them almost entirely disappear. It went from S tier to just disappear. Where is it now? I honestly think even at its increased cost, it's still a really good tool. We're gonna put it in the B tier. Still a great tool. If you have a couple of those in the lists, you know, with the upcoming points change, you only need a couple of those other B tier things, even if the Quad Jumpers don't change. A couple of those B tier things to come down in price, and all of a sudden you can stick these in there and they are super annoying. I know some people don't want Quad Jumpers to be competitive again because they can be borderline oppressive. Like, hey, you move there, I know exactly where you are, I'm initiative 1, I move towards you, and you are tractored. You're -1 agility, and I'm gonna move you over here. I'm gonna move you on a rock. A little bit too expensive to fit with the other things in SCUM right now, but I think we'll see a resurgence if other things come down in price. The Key Mogila made a surprise appearance during the Denver System Open in a mixed SCUM list, but I still don't think it's very good where it is right now. They really toned down the chassis, and I think right now it's in that D tier with the Aggressor. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Kirax Fighter. So the Kirax Fighter, say it how you wish, put your pronunciation in the comments, is in a spot right now where it's essentially an X-Wing when you look at the health and the defense and the attack, but without S-foils, which gives it a lot of utility, right? Being able to close those focus boosts in runaway situations. Problems are the dials aren't good. We don't see generic X-Wings competitively, which means that the generic, even though it's 1 point less than the cheapest X-Wing, when you're taking foils into consideration, I think foils are worth more than the 1 point difference here between the lowest Kirax Fighter and the lowest X-Wing. It's just too expensive for what it does, and the dial is worse than the X-Wing. And then really when we talk about competitively, the X-Wings that you see are Wedge and Luke. Wedge because he's initiative 6 and is able to hit harder than other ships by taking away an agility, and Luke because he has the Force, and the Force is good. So if the X-Wing chassis is very limited, you take a look at the Kirax Fighter, who doesn't have nearly as cool of an ability on any of the pilots. Even Talonbane Krober, who can get that Fenral-esque ability with the additional die, it's just not in a good spot. D tier. Looking at the YV666, you know, people have tried. There's a lot of people tried. We've had Andrew Knuckles give it a shot, Andrew Goldbach. I guess a bunch of Andrews really like to try out the slavers, but the problem is that it's not in a spot right now with the cost of SCUM crew. A lot of people look at this and say, party bus, we want the party bus to be good. If you're not familiar with that term, that is just a YV666 with 3 crew members who, you know, is able to like kind of hit hard and have some shenanigans on it. But you can't really build one right now with where the points are. Overall, I guess Moralo is the best of this bad ship, but it still gets the E tier. So now we'll go ahead and take a look at the Escape Craft. This is, you know, the nose of the ship, the customized YT-1300. And really the best tool that this ship has is the fact that it can coordinate. Cheap coordinators make it so that ships that are, you know, higher initiative can have more tokens, and more tokens usually means you're being more successful, you're able to hit harder, defend better, and it's usually a priority target. You also have the autopilot drone, which is a really cool tool if used properly. Our very own Marcel Manzano absolutely loves to use those, and if you watch our podcasts or listen to our podcast, you understand the meme of the fact that he wants to put this in every single SCUM list. But Lando pilot is really good in this. Same thing as L3. It's just really dependent on what you're trying to do. But the fact that it has coordinate, you take coordinate with tactical officer, that's cheap enough to really support any of these SCUM lists. That I honestly think out of all the ships in SCUM, it is the only S tier piece, because at its current price point, when other things start to move around, especially ace type ships, it's one of the first things people are going to reach for. I need a coordinator on my list. That is the only S tier ship, in my opinion, in SCUM right now. And last but certainly not the least, the very much loved Jumpmaster. It has been absolutely maimed in 2nd edition. Some people want it to stay that way because of all of the terror it cost in 1st edition with shooting torpedoes and barrel rolling all over the place, all kinds of things. And right now, because, so a couple of things, right? So it has barrel roll, but it's red. So you're gonna have to go ahead and pay for expert handling if you want it to move a little bit. It has a single mobile arc that is stressful to rotate. You can only turn around in one direction for the sloops, and it's red. The white sloop is gone, which is fine. but it not being the other way really hurts the chassis as well. It's really hard to maneuver this ship, and that's a major part of this game. Dengar, I would say, is the best pilot out of them. We've tried to make it work here at Gold Squadron. Marcel's flown it a few times. I've flown it a few times, and it's just, for the cost, it's just super limited. You feel claustrophobic with this ship. You're like, I can't do the things. And I don't know if maybe it's because we were so used to running the Jumpmaster at the height of its power. We did use it quite a bit. We've used both Dengar and the lowest initiative ones. I mean, right now it's F tier. It's in the bottom of the barrel right now. It's just, it doesn't work. So that's the rankings in the meta. For the second part of this video, I'm going to be ranking them according to how I think they look. If you want to argue with me, do so in the comments. Fight me. Let's go. So we're going to start with the Mining Guild tie. Why? I think it looks really cool. Yeah, I know they just cut off one of the section of panels. I guess it's two, right? Two sections of panels on a TIE fighter. But Mining Guild, you guys got style. The Fang Fighter. Oh, man. I love me some Fang Fighters. It is the model I have the most of. I think I have like 7 of them. Most of them are painted differently or are in the process of going to be painted. I just absolutely adore the Fang Fighter. I had mine modded before in first edition by Luke. Yeah, oh, they look so good. The Hawk 290, we talked about it in Rebels. It's the same model. It's pretty sweet looking. But, you know, we're kind of putting it up against all the other SCUM ships. We're going to put it at B. Maybe I said A last time. I don't remember. But right now, today, it's B. Actually, it's A. I really like it. Oh, man. The quad jumper's so ugly. Some people are like, oh, it's ugly in a beautiful way. Stop that. It's bad. You know that it's bad. It's ugly. F. Now, let's talk about the M3A. So when the Fang Fighter came out, people were like, oh, the Fang Fighter's just a backwards M3A. Do you see it? Do you kind of see the comparison there? If you look at the silhouettes, them side by side, some people even get confused. And I get it. They're very similar. One's flipped the other way. But the problem is something about the M3A and the directional kind of like Stingray-esque look that it's got. I don't like it. I really don't like it. It's not the worst, but it's bad. Not for me. The Skirg's okay. Like you look at it, and if you were just kind of familiar with Star Wars, you would look at it and go, yeah, that's a SCUM ship. Even if you don't know the lore behind it, you don't know who Nim is, whatever. It's a SCUM ship. It's okay. It's not great. It's middle of the road. It's the barometer, right there. That's probably not the right use of that, but I don't care. The Jumpmaster, I like it. Call it an emotional attachment to, you know, doing well in tournaments, if you will, whatever. Listen, that ship is cool. That like crescent moon shape and like that really aggressive pointed nose. That's a cool ship. The Lancer class pursuit craft. I love this ship. If I could fly 3 in a list competitively, I think I would, because I like them so much. It is the second most number of models I have. I have like 6 Lancer crafts. Again, some of them are repainted. Some of them I want them to be repainted, but they look super, super cool. Let's go with a classic here. Let's go with the Fire Spray. Oh man, this is where we start some controversy here, right? It's all right. It looks good. I remember being really confused. So I remember, okay, let's talk about when we see this ship for the first time. If I'm remembering correctly, we see it for the first time in the Empire Strikes Back, right? Episode 5. We see it landed. I don't remember when I realized that it actually flew like standing up. I just remember being really confused by that. The body of the ship though is good. It's A tier. The Star Viper. The Star Viper has the E-wing problem. If you remember in our Rebel rankings, it just doesn't look like a Star Wars ship. Like, I feel just like it really sticks out. And this is kind of an issue, right, for SCUM ships, because they're supposed to be like the edgy, thrown together, less known things. They're not part of the main conflict in Star Wars. I guess it's a B tier. I mean, it's cool, right? It's a butterfly. I like butterflies. The G1A is the spaceship that every Winnebago wants to be. Okay? I have seen some of the ugliest ship combos using this thing. I think the coolest thing on it is the spoiler. Yeah, the spoiler on the back. It's a D tier. It's underneath the Skurg for sure. The Trandoshan Slaver, the YV666. I think that's a cool ship, man. Something about it. I know it's basically a wall with wings, but it's a wall with wings that I like. We're going to put it in the A tier. The Aggressor, the ship of IG-88. I think it's ugly. Oh man, the thing's ugly. When I bought it for the first time, I thought the little manacle wing things that kind of look like hands, I thought that was the front of the ship. That is bad design. It's a slipper for dinosaurs. F. The Z95. The Z95 is a towed down X-Wing. The Y-Wing, I mean, we like Y-Wings. Got repaint for SCUM. I mean, if you're new to second edition, you're playing SCUM, you don't have access to that unless you buy first edition packs. I mean, it's always been, it's cool. It's cool. I like it. It's classic. B. Let's talk about Lando's Millennium Falcon, or the customized YT-1300. I think it's not S tier because it's not. You know, it's the Falcon. It's pretty classic, but it's got the blue. I do like the blue. I think it just hit. I think it's A. We'll put it at the front of the line. I think it's the best looking ship in the A's. We get to the Kirax fighter. Honestly, it kind of has the same issue with the Star Viper, but less cool looking. It's scummy. Middle of the road. The Escape Craft. In the 1300 itself, it looks really, really cool. By itself, it looks very strange. It's ugly. When I make the thumbnails for games, and there's a single one of these, it is the single ugliest thumbnail out of like a little image, the silhouette, out of all the ships. It's just really awkward looking. F tier. Man, I didn't realize I was going to have so many in the F tier. And last but certainly not the least, the Mogila, or the Mogila, or the Mogello, whatever you want to call it. I honestly think this ship is kind of cool. The design has that like mouth looking thing on the front, but the paint job is weird. This paint job that is done in the art for this pilot is really, really cool. If this was the standard one, it would definitely get a higher rating. But if we're just talking about what we get, I think it's going to be in the B tier. So let me know in the comments, where do you agree, meta-wise or preference-wise? Either way, let's have that discussion. Thanks for watching. Gold Squadron out.